Guys, Kevin is back, and a quick market update on the current situation. So we'll look at, I told you in the last video, Ethereum just broke out this level, a nice resistance level, broke out. Let's check it here. The 1 hour time frame, we can see it clearly, right? Whatever that is. We can see it clearly. We had this good resistance line and we broke out now, so we're waiting for a retest, or maybe there's no retest, but actually like this retest. If there's no retest, we might just break out, because I explained it last video. Hit the bottom, hit another double bottom, and the double bottom with massive divergence in the RSI. MACD is gaining traction. The only thing that's still decreasing is the volume, but that can change very fast. And what I'm looking at right now is the Bitcoin dominance, okay? We see the chart, Bitcoin dominance chart, and if we look at the past cycles, right? We look at the past cycles, we can see every time. I told you also that August was always a good month, right? That's why in September we had a good correction, okay? We always saw, let's walk through it again one more time. August was always a good month, okay? This chart, we can see it clearly. August, Bitcoin pumping 80%, okay? And after that, from the beginning of September, dumped 25%. Let's go through it on 2017. Once again, you can see it clearly, We can see it clearly that pumping, from the mid of July to the end of August, pumped 170% Bitcoin, right? And from the 2nd September to mid of September, minus 40%. And we could even go one more time back into the past and watch how it was in 2013. Okay, what did we see here? Right, what did we see? A massive pump actually. 130% again until the end of August. And then we saw a minus 17 to minus 25% dump. So September was always a bad month, always, okay? Based on that fact, we see, okay, Bitcoin is leading the market, of course, as the number one crypto asset that's out there for now, and which might be number one forever. So based on that fact, I expect Bitcoin to move up soon, right? Until the end of August, beginning of September, we might see a top, right? As I said, 130 to 140K level, somewhere between maybe 135K. And after that, we might see a good correction to the level of $112,000 to $109,000 again, which makes totally sense. Because as I just showed you, we did minus 25, minus 40, minus 25%. And from this level, that would be minus 20%, minus 19%, minus 20, and which also makes sense that we have less, not that big correction, or from 140K to 109 is 22%, because there are now more institutions, right? More long-term holders, more long-term believers, more companies buying these assets, which is the reason why by time we have less volatility, okay? So now we still see massive volatility, but in 15 to 20 years, we will not see that anymore, if Bitcoin still exists, of course. But based on how Bitcoin moves right now, we saw more massively volatility, and it gets, less. So that's the reason why I believe end of August, beginning of September, the top, it's not the cycle all-time top, of course, but it will be a good time to take profits, especially on altcoins, because we always see that. We can go on the others chart. Where's the others chart? Here. We always see, after hitting the top, okay, we hit the top this year on mid of March to beginning of December, okay? Bitcoin also, we can look at up for Bitcoin as well. You know what we can do as well? Let me just get to this chart again. And now we just do like this here. That's the others chart, okay? So what can we see? What can we see? Bitcoin, basically, all right, it's a little bit bad, but I think, you know, you understand the idea, okay? Bitcoin pumped, altcoins pumped as well, right? Others, and they pump more. In percentage, they always pump more. It's not that shown, you know, you see this here at the cycle top. But for now, they didn't pump that much even though, right? Bitcoin always pumped more. And after that, altcoins pumped as well, others. And what we see then is Bitcoin is correcting, right? Minus 30%. And the others chart, we can just, you know, let's take the normal chart, man. This ugly. It's ugly like that. I don't like it. Let's just open the others chart. And the others chart, you know, we saw Bitcoin moving minus 30%. The others chart did minus 60%. So double, you know, altcoins lose double the percentage during that time. Here we did another 60% dump, you know. So next time we see the altcoin rally, I don't expect it to be the all-time top for this cycle, you know. So that's another small rally we might see to this level, a little bit higher than we had last time. Absolutely possible. And if we see a 60% dump from there, you know, let's say end of August, beginning of September, 60% dump brings us back to this level, you know, almost the April level. The April level, big black Monday. We saw it in the markets. I think you will know what I'm talking about. And so that's my plan. That's my current game plan. I'll watch it, of course, and comparing it to the social media metric score, right? The social media metric score, let me update this real quick, is at 1.2% right now, which means that basically nobody is interested into crypto right now. Basically nobody. You see this year, we had 100% interest in crypto, and these people, or this chart especially, shows the retail, okay? The retail is, for example, you, is me, is all the people who are private investors, basically, who buy and sell the chart on their own beliefs, their own facts, their own whatever it is, you know. And based on this metric, we can see very good, we can analyze very good how, when we saw a top, right? Here at the top, the social metric score was the highest. Why does it make sense? Because of course, if the more people there are, the less people are there to buy and to, you know, bring the actual asset higher, you know. So if there are, let's say if there are 1 billion people, okay, and these 1 billion people, out of the 1 billion people, 900 or 950 million are there now already. They bought already the asset, they bought Bitcoin, they bought Ethereum, for example, you know, as the altcoins, because the retail also likes more to buy altcoins. And for example, you see here, percentage was 20%, okay? Which means 200 million in that case. 200 million of people, so 20% bought in here or are interested in crypto here, okay? And if you're interested, of course, you're much more likely to buy as well. So once we saw a new all-time high, okay, in 2021, Bitcoin or Ethereum in that case was at $3,300. I believe it's more. The chart isn't just that accurate, but the date is accurate. So we saw the social total risk was at 1. Basically means that 1 billion out of 1 billion people were there. So when you know that, who is gonna buy after them? Nobody, basically, you know, all the people are there already. So how can another person buy? And if there's nobody to buy even more, you know, to buy back, then of course you will dump. You will see a dump. And that's what we saw here, right? We saw a dump. We saw also a dump to 62% of social media interest, you know, the metric risk score, which means that 40%, almost half, left the space, you know, because they probably bought in here at this level and they sold down here. So they thought, or even maybe they bought here and they sold here and they say, hey, I want to take a break now. I don't need that right now. I made good profits, whatever it is. So 40% left, and we came back up again, you know, hit the double top, a little bit higher. The social metric score was at 92%. And guess what? If we're at 92%, who's gonna buy after that? There's almost nobody to buy. So at this point, we want to sell our bags. You know, at this point where the social metric score is the highest, we want to sell our bags. So at the 70%, starting from the 70% range, it was always a good number to sell, right? To sell some. Here 70% range was here. It was always a good time to take some profits. So that's what we're gonna do. And this time we saw beginning of April, you know, mid-March, beginning of April, the social metric score was the highest. So that's what we see in the rally. You know, this is altcoin season. This is the euphoria time, right? But this is just a rally, you know, small rally. Some euphoria is coming into the market, some good news, you know, some people in 30 to 40% retail interest, right? Here again, November to December, fluctuate a little bit between, you know, basically between 30 to 40%, okay? That's where we want to take profit as well in a rally, not in the altcoin season, but in a rally, okay? And now we're at 1.2%. That's nothing. Nobody's here, but Ethereum is at 4.5K, okay? 4.5K, which means almost all-time high. The all-time high in Ethereum was at 4,870 roughly. So at 4,900, Ethereum is doing another all-time high, a new all-time high. And once that happens, you know, the retail will be back so fast, and the social media activity will go up so fast, you know, so quickly. So that's a pattern I'm looking for. So end of August, beginning of September, as I said, I expect it to dump. And now coming back to my idea, the Bitcoin dominance, right, is falling right now. So Bitcoin dominance means how much money on the total supply, on the total market cap, the total amount of money that is into crypto right now is into Bitcoin, okay? So for example, if there is $1 million, okay, which is of course a very low number, but just for you to understand, $1 million into crypto, okay? Total market cap, $1 million. If Bitcoin dominance is at 66%, that means that $660,000, okay, $660,000 are into Bitcoin alone. And the rest, the other $340K, you know, are into the others. Chart basically altcoins, you know, alternative coins, which could be large caps like Ethereum, like Solana, like Ton, you know, all these bigger caps, but also meme coins, you know, like Doge, like Bread, like Pepe, you know, all these things, okay? So just quick explanation for the people who don't know what the dominance says, you know, and based on that, okay, let me just delete it real quick. I can leave it, it's okay. Based on that fact, we can go back, okay? We can go back, and as I told you, August was always a good month, right? So what did we see? What can we see? Which pattern can we see? We look at the Bitcoin dominance and we see, hey, from the start of July or the start of August, end of July, right? That's where we were at a low, okay? And after that, that's the August here. That's exactly August, showing what's happening in August, okay? And from the end of July until mid of August here, and then we pumped a little bit, we came down back again end of August, right? So ultimately, we dumped minus 17% in Bitcoin dominance, which means that this 17%, you know, flows into altcoins, goes into altcoins. And the good thing about that is that doesn't mean that there's less money into Bitcoin. So just because the Bitcoin dominance is falling doesn't mean there is less money to Bitcoin, because imagine we have $1 million into the whole crypto market, okay? And 660K is now into Bitcoin. And now imagine that there's $1 more million flowing into crypto, okay? So now we have $2 million into crypto, which means double, right? But out of the 2 million, there's not 66% of the new 1 million flowing into Bitcoin. There's maybe just 50% of the new million, right, flowing into Bitcoin, which means that Bitcoin is at 1.16 million market cap, 1.16 million, right? total money supply in Bitcoin, and the other 900 or 840k are now into altcoins, okay? And that's an 8. And if you now calculate that, 840 divided by 2 equals 420, right? So that means that 42% are now into altcoins, okay? 42%, but with more money flowing into the whole market cap. So it could also be, it's most of the times, a lot of times, Bitcoin still rises a little bit, you know, sometimes it drops, sometimes it fluctuates, mostly it goes right, you know, or sideways, and it still can be that the dominance changes, you know, more money flowing into altcoins in general than into Bitcoin. That's a quick explanation. So that would be 58% Bitcoin, what we see right now, right? From 66% to 85% would be exactly, for example, this scenario, but of course with a lot of more money, with trillions of money, not trillions of dollars, not million, right? So based on that, we just saw here end of July to end of August, we dropped 17%, correct? Which means 17% of the money flowing into altcoins, as I told you. We can see the same thing, the exact same thing, happening in 2021. That was 2017, and in 2021, what could we see? Of course, the dominance dropped a lot more, you know, a lot more, because we saw in May already a decent all-time high for altcoins, you know. It was a little bit different than last cycle, but all in all, the same pattern. And what did we see? In May, we had an all-time high. Then we came back to end of July. You know, it's always the same. End of July, we have a low. And after that, what did we see? To mid of September, minus 18.7% dump in the Bitcoin dominance again. Okay, minus 17, minus 18.6%. And what do we see now, ladies and gentlemen? I hope you paid attention, because now we see end of July, you know, exactly here, 27th of July, we see a drop yet from 10%, right? 10%. So based on that fact, we see 17%, we see 18%. And we also know the fact that of course, more institutions buy and more long-term holders buy. So there might be a less dump or a less rotation into altcoins, okay? Because more people believe more in Bitcoin and they just want to hold Bitcoin. They don't care about Ethereum. They don't care about making more money, basically, you know? So what can we expect now? Well, an 80% dump. Oh, wait. That was my mistake, guys. My mistake. This is June, not July. That's why I was mistaken. I was wondering what. So we can see, I'm sorry, guys. We can see, here, end of July, right? Now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. I was just wondering, why is it just 55%? Exactly to 50% range, it will be 19.5% dump. Maybe we just dump 12%, 13%, which also means that it's 54% Bitcoin dominance, which means that 6% more money flow into altcoins than into Bitcoin. And if the total market cap, for example, rises by 20%, that means that 6% more go into Bitcoin, or even it's actually even more. It's not 6%, but it's way more. And as altcoins, don't forget that, don't forget that. For example, this example, okay? We have now, instead of 340K, okay, we have now 840K, which means we have now not 340 minus 800, which is 500K, okay? We had 300K in altcoins in general, okay? Now we have 500K, and remember, altcoins are alternative coins. That means that they are way smaller than Bitcoin. Ethereum, for example, is the biggest altcoin, but there are also way smaller coins. And if just 1% of the new 500K, let's say, right, of the 500K, just 1%, which means 5K, flows into, for example, Solana or Ton chain, that's huge. Of course, the market cap, it would be not 5K, it would be 500 million probably. If 500 million flows into Ton, Ton will go and rise already. If 5 billion flow into Ton will be way higher. That's how it works. It flows first in the large caps like Ethereum, Solana, and ton, because you imagine you're a whale making money on Bitcoin. Okay, you put in $1 million at Bitcoin 20K. Now Bitcoin is at 120K. So you 6x your portfolio, right? So out of 1 million, you now have made 1 million into 1 million into 6 million, okay? Which means 600 or 500% return. So now a lot of whales, what they do is, hey, I made now 6 million. So let me take out 4 million. I did a quadruple on my first 1 million, right? And the other 2 million, let me rotate them, the other 2 million into altcoins. Alts, right? Damn, this, yeah, alts. You understand what I mean? 2 million. So he takes, for example, 2 million and puts them into alts. If he loses that, it is what it is. You know, it happens, but you still have made 4x on your initially trade. And, you know, based on that, that's what most people do. They buy then Ethereum, they buy Ton, they buy Solana. And after that, you know, they see, hey, my 2 million turned into 10 million again. Let me take out half now. Let me take out half, 5 million, and let me invest it into smaller caps. Or even if you just take out 1 million, you know, for smaller caps, imagine, look, imagine Brett, okay, at 570 million. This is my lucky magnet right there. Imagine Brett at 570 million, okay, and this one whale says, hey, look, fuck it, I just made 4 million on Bitcoin, I made 10 million on altcoins, let me put in 1 million here. Let's see what happens, you know. Maybe this has potential. Brett, and this time is now at 1 billion. He sees, hey, Brett is doing amazing marketing, crazy meme coin, and meme coins will be hyped, you know, because it's always a rotation from big coins into mid coins, into low cap coins, into small caps, like Brett, for example. And then he puts in 1 million at 1 billion market cap, and immediately Brett goes to 1 point something. Yeah, I don't know the exact number, maybe 1.2, maybe 1.5 billion market cap, and then other whales will see it. You know, it's a propaganda. Other whales will see it. The whale will tell to his friends, hey, look, I've just put my money into Brett and it's already 2x right now. We are just at 2 billion market cap. And this thing has the potential to go to 10, 20 billion, you know. So at 5 billion, this guy made 5 million, right? And he now says to his friend, hey, look, guys, I just made 5 million. I'm still holding my bag, you know, and his whale friends will buy as well. So now from 5 billion, this thing will fly to 10, 20 plus billion dollars, because all the whales just want to make a 2x. You know, there are a lot of whales with a lot of money who just want to make a 2x. A 2x is a very good return for a lot of money. You know, if you have 10 million, you just want to have a 2x, you make 10 million, right? You don't need to go into too much risk because it's not necessary for you. A 2x is already $10 million. That's enough for a living, you know, for like 99% of the people on this world, 99.9% of the people on this world. So that's basically my explanation on the rotation, how it works and how it will happen, especially in altcoin season. We will see massively, you know. Now we hit 2 billion, 2.3 billion on Brett, for example, with the rally. You know, it was a small rally. We saw 2 rallies, first 1.9, then 2.3. The next one could be 2.53 billion, right? And the ultimate altcoin season will be easily, really easily 3 to 10, 20x higher. So instead of 3 billion, we go to 9 to 60 billion, right? Between 9 to really 60 billion is doable in a good market condition, and, you know, some good things popping up. Of course, luck is always part of the journey, but math is as well. And the math tells you, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the marketing, Brett does all of that, you know, that's a different story right there. But it will tell you that, hey, 10 billion plus is a decent goal that we can, that's really possible to reach, right? So based on that, you know, I just showed you where my expectation for the Bitcoin dominance is, around the 50% range in this rally, right? And after the 50% range, maybe 52, maybe, you know, 50, 53, somewhere there in this range here, then we will do a higher high as Bitcoin. Then, you know, we drop as Bitcoin. I showed you my my analysis here, right? So if we see Bitcoin going up and then dumping, let's say 20%, altcoins will dump more than double, right? Ethereum may dump 30%, but the smaller caps, others in general, altcoins in average will dump 40 to 60%. Okay, so if these things dump 40 to 60%, most of the people, always in a risky market, people always like to then go safe and bet on safe assets, and the safest crypto coin asset right there outside here is Bitcoin for sure, because it's the biggest, it makes sense. So all the money that rotated into altcoins, into large caps, small caps, whatever, will flow back into Bitcoin or into USDC, stable coin, because they don't want to lose any money. They say, hey, now it's too, I'm too afraid to lose money. We went from 140K to 110K again, which is 20% decrease. I bought at 130K, so, the average will be down. Maybe the average new people will be down 80%. And imagine you put in $1 million and you're down 180K after all these whales telling you, hey, this is a new shit. Bitcoin is crazy, best asset in the world. And so the people will look for safety. They are, they're afraid. They will be afraid. Fear will be in the market. The exact difference of what will be here, the greed, we can see the greed here. Here we can see the fear. The basic rule is sell in the greed, buy in the fear, right? And once the people are buying here, that's a good thing, That's actually, if you use it for your benefit, that's a good thing, because the money will rotate into Bitcoin. Altcoins will lose a lot more percentage. So we can expect, for example, bread, right? Meme coin, a good meme coin, number one on base. Let's go with it. I like bread a lot. For example, bread goes to 3 billion, right? To this 3 billion level, okay? Right here. To the 3 billion level, makes sense, right? We can see it exactly here on the line. Where is it? Okay, you see, beginning of September, let's say 2.6 billion, somewhere around there, right? And then Brett does and now we saw, okay, the altcoin rally happened, right? A little bit here and there. We take some profits, just in case, because we can also pump harder, we never know. But in case, hey, we see bread going to 3 billion, I say, look, I said 20% of that bag, in case we come down lower, I can buy in with this 20%, 3 times of the amount, right? Because Bitcoin does a minus 20%. What will happen to bread, the small cap coin? It will dump 50% plus. 50 to 70% is my estimation. So, which ultimately means that we will come down to the level of 1.5 to 800 million. We could also go to the 700 million level, somewhere around 1.5 to 700 million. And imagine now, okay, imagine you put 10K into bread at 500 million, okay? 10K into bread at 500 million. You turn it into a 6x, okay? Which means that you now have 60K. Okay, let's say you now sell 1/3 of your bag, right? You sell 1/3 of your bag, which means 60K, you sell 20K, okay? Out of 60K, you sell 20K and you wait, you're patient, right? Now you see, hey, from 3 billion, we came down to 1 billion. Let's say 1 billion, right? Your 40K in your bag that you had at 3 billion, right? Now decreased by 66%. Which means that how much is 66%? It's like 26 million, right? 26K. So out of 40K, you now have 13K left. Okay. So now you have 13K left in your bag. Your bag is now worth 13K as we come back to the 1 billion level, from the 3 billion, where your bag initially was 60K, you took out 20K, you left 40K, this 40K are now 13K. And now, now with this 20K, you can buy 1.5 times the amount you still held with 40K. You see, so you did a 1.5x. Or basically, you did more, because even if you would hold your 60K bag, you go down to, you know, minus 66%, which means that you then have 20K. But now you saved your ass. You now have, instead of 20K, you have 33K, which is a 60% increase, you know? So you saved yourself money, and here you can buy, you can help the project to have a good floor. You can buy in here because in the ultimate alt season, everybody knows where bet will go, 10 billion plus, right? So now you have 60% more of the bag down here, right? Whereas before, or if you didn't sell, you would have 20K, now you have 33K. And imagine bet going just from 1 billion to 10 billion, you know, easy math we're doing right now. 1 billion to 10 billion, instead of 200K, you now have 330K. Do you see the difference, what I mean? Do you see the difference? And in case, look, in case you took out 20K here, you still have 40K left, bet pumps to 5 billion or to 7 billion in this run up, you know. You can even sell more at 7 billion, because what do we know is when Bitcoin tops at some point and, you know, sees a pullback of 10, 20%, altcoins will see a pullback of double the amount plus, right? So if Brett even hits, look, let's say like that, okay? Easy math. We say Brett is not going to 3 billion, but to 6 billion instead, okay? It does double the amount. Unfortunately, you sold 1/3 of your bag at 3 billion, right? So you would have not 20K, you would have 40K at 6 billion, you know? So instead of 120K you would have here, you just have 100K. Okay, so you lost on 20K on profits right there. But once, you know, we just, man, let me get this magnet there real quick. But once, you know, I just told you 50% dump is very likely to happen. That's what always happens with altcoins. So from these 7 or 6 billion, we now dump 50%, and boom, we're back on the 3 billion what you sold. So basically, you can even sell here more, right? We pump, hey, lucky you can sell another, from the 100K, another 20K. Okay, now you have 40K on the side, and here you're worth 80K, right? 80K. So now you have 80K, you dump 50%. So you have now 40K left in your bet position, and another 40K you sold already in the side. So instead of, you know, having 80K to 40K or 120K to 60K, you now have 80K on the side. And as you sold on the 3 billion level, you can now buy in the same level. Buy back in the same level with, you know, a stronger floor. Because when we go up, we come down, we wash out a lot of people who don't believe in this project or want to leave, right? And now you can buy back in with at 3 billion level. That's easy math, you know, because the 50% dump is very likely to happen. And yeah, that's my analysis on that. You can just sell a little bit more here, come down, buy in back later, and 3 billion to 10, 20 plus billion is absolutely doable. My quick analysis on the rotation and how I will do it. And what else I wanted to show you? Yes, that's what basically my main idea on this video, why I do that. What I wanted to show is the USDC dominance, okay, which means stable coins. I talked about it earlier to you that once we have a correction, people want safety. They don't want to be in risky assets because they might do another minus 30%, minus 50%. So they want to rotate their money into stable things like Bitcoin and USDT, you know, because USDT, of course, doesn't lose value directly, indirectly, inflation and stuff. Yes, but on the short term, you will not feel anything if you just hold 1 month US dollar, right? So that's what people do. They rotate the money, and that's why we see always when the market is the lowest, beginning of April, we had this, you know, I told you Black Monday, where the market had the big dump, and we saw the USDC dominance dropping or actually increasing a lot, you know, 8.8%, whereas we're now at 6% dominance. And what else we can see is, I told you, mid of March and beginning of December, we had our all-time highs in Ethereum, right? Which also meant that, or means that, that's the time where the fewest amount of money is held into safe assets like USDC or USDT, right? Into stable coins. And which also means that from this point, we then might see an increase of USDT because a lot of people already hold assets right here. You know, there are not many people to join the market so far. So that's why we can see an increase of USDC dominance. And we saw it 2 times, right? Mid of April, we saw it, Ethereum rising extremely. And after that, Ethereum dumped, USDT dominant has risen. And the same thing on the beginning of December. So now we know this level, it's the exact same level, basically the 490%, you know, 4.9%. And starting from the 4.3%, I will start to take some profits probably. You know, I compare it to the retail activity, social media risk score. So make sure to follow and hit a like that you don't miss anything on that. And we just came beautifully to the resistance level here. You see that we had a resistance level. We hit the resistance, you know, that happened beginning of August. We dumped, right? Quick bounce up, retest of the resistance. And now what I expect to happen until the end of August, beginning of September, we come down to this 5% range, right? 5% range level where, yeah, altcoins will pump in combination with the Bitcoin dominance falling, of course. So that's what my take is on the market so far. And for now, I will be taking some profits, probably maybe 20%, as I told you, 20 to 30% is a good amount. So you still support your project, of course, but you make sure that you also help the project to find a good floor. So it's actually a win-win for everybody because you're not, you know, most people would say, hey, you don't believe in the project. Why would you sell bread? You know, you're such a bread maxi, right? That's what, yeah, that's basically, you can call me a bread maxi. I really like this project. Shout out to my guy, Precious Clay. And yeah, you know, you could say easily, hey, look, we're at 3 billion. Why the fuck would you sell this project? Why would you be so selfish and sell? You know, you bought in at 500 million. Why would you sell at 3 billion if we go to 10 billion? You know, the thing is, most people don't realize that if you sell at 3 billion, you know, and you know, hey, in your mind, you just heard my analysis. In your mind, you know, hey, bread is not a 3 billion coin. It's actually a 10 billion plus coin, okay? But the moment right now is not the moment when we will hit the 10 billion, okay? It's just not there. The attention is not there. The demand is not there. You know, the USDT dominance is not falling too much, right? And you know, that's one more point, because in an altcoin season, Bitcoin USDT dominance will even fall lower. Actually, you know, will fall lower than this level, maybe to the 4.5% level, maybe to the 3.6% level, because more money will flow into altcoins, you know. And so you can say, hey, why are you so foolish, you know, to sell your most liked project? Thank you for this critical question. I like it. And I will tell you, look, the guy who's foolish is you, because you will hold this coin. You know, when you're up, let's say you buy 10K at 500 million, you have now 60K, right? Instead, you know, when we come down to the level of 1 billion, you just have 20K left, right? So you cannot do anything to the floor. You cannot buy anything. You don't have nothing to do, right? Instead, if you sell 20K here, because there will be more demand here, people will buy these 20K easily, 100K easily, right? So you sell 30% of your bag, which means 20K. You put 20K on the side, you have 40K left. You know, if we go higher, that's good. You still support this project, man. But what happens? As I just told you, what happens if we come lower? You know, if we're lower, hit the $1 billion range, what happens then? Guess what? You still have then 20 fucking K on the side to support this bottom, bro. To support this bottom, think outside, man. Don't be a fool and say you don't support the project. Think outside, man. You now have 20K. And if you, of course, have a bigger bag, you now have maybe 200K that you can put into bread here, because you know, ultimately, bread is a $10 billion plus coin, right? So you put in the 22, let's say, you know, no matter which amount, but you put in an amount to support, to help find support for this chart, to then be able to move higher. You know, the higher the floor, the higher the ceiling, guys. Remember that. The higher the floor, the higher the ceiling. So if the floor is at 100 million, you cannot, it's very hard to go to 10 billion plus. But if the floor is at 1 billion, and we see in altcoin season, 10, 20 billion plus is absolutely doable. And you will be the guy who helps the project to stay above this level. Because don't forget, the people who buy in here, all these people who buy in to the $1 billion market are the people who believe most in the project. Okay, who believe most in the project. And all these people, so these guys are not believers. These guys are not believers. Once Brett finds the bottom and maybe goes down 25%, these people will sell because they don't have the vision, right? They will sell, and ultimately the thing will fall to the 1 billion level. And now, you smart guy, you very smart guy, you have 1/3 of your initial bag on the side, left on the side, right? So, I have 1% left, but what I wanted to say is you have this on the side, so you can help to support the bottom, okay? You can help to support this project to, after that, go higher, the higher the floor, the higher the ceiling, guys. And that being said, I'll leave it there. I hope you could get some ideas of my video, basically of this explanation. And, that's my take on the current market. I wait for, or I expect a pump the next 2 weeks, actually. And I hear you on the next one, yeah? Take care, stay healthy, and bye.